Hello, everybody. Welcome to Joining the Dots TV, the Startups Network. I'm Carl Rodriguez, and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Rahul Chakkara. I hope I pronounced that right, Rahul, who has founded a great business called Manas.ai. And really good to have you here today. How's it going?
Thanks, Carl. It's going well. It is going back to, I don't want to say the normal, but as normal as it can be, not being able to travel too much.
Yeah.
No, it's going well. It's actually picked up. I think from the cliff of April, businesses that are coming back have climbed onto the coast and back onto normal lines.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting in. We're definitely in the swing of it. I was just thinking earlier on. I mean, we're recording this at 5 o'clock, and the days seem to go very fast in Zoom sphere. Anyway, so
Indeed,
we're getting there. So I'm sure this conversation, again, as always with these, they'll go quite quickly. And I just really wanted to pick your brains about the whole landscape of AI and what's happening with what's being enabled through that, because you're in the thick of it. But I want to start off by giving you a chance to just tell a little story about your background, because you've been involved with some great projects and companies in the past as well. So do you want to just introduce yourself and give everybody a bit of a sense of who you are?
Sure. My background, by training, I'm an engineer. In fact, it just happened by chance. My graduation project was programming a robot. Not that robotics were any big deal at that point, but it was quite an interesting thing to do as an engineer. And since then, I've just kept an eye on AI, robotics, because it's an interesting field. But at that time, none of us really assumed anything would come of it. It was a very interesting theoretical field. After that, did the master's, joined a great company called Procter & Gamble. And Procter & Gamble builds great multi-billion-dollar brands. And it builds these brands by being able to understand their customers better than anyone else in the world. They would say that they understand the customers better than the customers themselves. And during the period I was with Procter & Gamble, I was involved in quite a few of the brands. What we used to do is we used to do focus groups, we used to do surveys, we used to do test markets, and we used to understand actually how we could actually build the brands that consumers would buy. So we were in the listening mode of our consumers, and it would take months and years to actually do that. Looking back, it's fascinating to say you build the brands after years of listening to the customers, but that's what it took. And since then, I've worked with large companies like BBC, TalkTalk, Carnival Cruises, interestingly. The commonality between all of these companies have been, number one, this is around the time where digital was coming from almost every organization I've worked with struggled with that.
Well, my line broke. I think this might be on the recording as well. Just say that again, the bit about what was in common with the BBC and other TalkTalk and so on.
Yeah, the commonality between all these organizations was digital technologies were coming from the edges to the center of the organization. And I would say pretty much every organization struggled with that, to make sense of all the technologies, the systems, the data, the customers, etc. And the second point was understanding the customer, the voice of the customer knowledge also was quite, it happened again at the edges. Multiple people were listening, talking to the customers, but it was different conversations happening through different means, through phone calls, through letters, through emails, etc. But no one in the organization had a common view of the customer. So if you ask different parts of the company, each one would say different things about what the customers liked, what was happening with the customers, how the products were performing with the customers, etc. So there were it was quite interesting to see how companies were having difficulty bringing all the systems together at the same time, also shifting from traditional way of talking to customers to a different, more digital way of talking to the customers and having a single view of the customer, which actually offers huge opportunities for someone coming from outside and understanding the possibilities to fill that gap and address that pain point, which is what we have set out to do as a company. We are using artificial intelligence and specifically the NLP side of it to be able to understand the customer at in almost real time and being able to explain that to the company, to every part of the company in a very easy, simple way.
Yeah, okay, so we'll go into that in a bit more detail. It makes me think, actually the phrase just came to me when you were describing that of digital discussion. I've never thought of that particular phrase, and it makes sense what you're saying about having this common view. And obviously, most of the corporates or sort of large organizations I've spoken to over the last few years, they're all doing that digital transformation. I mean, that's the most common phrase I think I hear ever. So certainly I've seen, and obviously, my background and so on is around data. And so I think we know now that all the corporates out there, they know they could make more of data. They want to transform. Like you said, it's coming from the edge. They know these things are quite core to their business. And you're in that really interesting sweet spot of having been through that digital journey with them, but also then, I think what I'd like you to sort of go into in a bit more detail now, as we were touching into, is how AI is enabling that kind of data layer to be unlocked, because like you say, there's the common view, but what is the role that AI is playing from your perspective?
It's a good question. If you look at the last 2 decades, and it's funny to see that it has taken 2 decades for digital, because digital technologies have been there for more than 2 decades, for the transformation to be serious and most of the organizations to actually implement that. But what digital transformation has enabled in most of the organization, not every organization, but most of the organization, is to put the fundamentals in place, for the raw materials in place, all the building blocks in place for companies to then extract value from it. Because putting things digitally and putting all the data in one place, putting all the data in one format doesn't mean anything. It basically means you can produce reports better and quicker. But to extract value from that in order for companies to build the proposition, execute the proposition, run the company, be competitive, that's a completely different ballgame. That is basically about how do I extract value from the digital, all the work that I have done in the digital transformation. So this is the post-digital transformation world. It's how do I now transform my company after digital transformation? And AI will have a critical role in that process, because what AI actually enables you to do is get companies to handle the scale of digital, not the systems, the data, etc. You can have all this data, but if you're a company with 1 million+ customers, you have humongous amounts of data. Now, how the hell are you going to make sense of this data, understand this? You can create report, you can create nice visual charts, but how are you going to use that? So you need the technology. AI is a great technology to actually enable scale some of the value creation that you can do with digital products. So in other words, you have everything in place, and to make sense of it and scale it, you need technologies like AI.
So do you want to just give us an example so that people can start to get their heads around this in a little bit more of a sort of tangible journey that some sort of consumer facing business might benefit from these kinds of technologies?
Yeah, I'll take an example of again language, because that's close to what we do and I'm quite familiar with that. It is in the olden days, we used to talk to our customers, maybe 1,000 customers a month, maybe 5,000 customers a month in focus group surveys, etc. And at the worst comes to worst, we could actually read all those 5,000, and you could understand what the customers were saying. You could actually, as a human being, you could understand, make sense of it. Now customers are talking to each other in large volumes, not just in thousands, but tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands every month in multiple channels, whether that's social media channels or private channels or community channels, etc. For someone to be able to take all this conversation, let's say a company of 1 million consumers, you will easily have 100,000 conversations plus. To be able, it's almost humanly impossible for someone to read this 100,000 conversations. So how do you make sense of it? You need some technology that is as good as a human reading this language and making sense of it, but at the same time deal with 100,000 conversations that has happened. And that is where AI technology comes in, because AI technology, effectively what it does is it processes each conversation as close as a human being does. It's still far away from being as good as a human being, but it's as close as a human being. But then is able to process conversation, is able to process 100,000 conversations, and then being able to extract sense from it, extract the intelligence from it, and then provide it back to the company in near real time. So what used to take weeks and thousands to understand 5,000 conversations, now within minutes, you can have a system processing 100,000 conversations and give them meaning. So what does that mean? I mean, that's just technology. That's it doing. What does it mean for our customer, for our company? It means the product manager knows exactly whether the product is working. Is a customer using the product? Are they happy about it? Are they unhappy about it? Are they unhappy about some of the features they have, the companies have released? Quite often you'll be surprised how the chief product officer has an understanding of how well the product is doing, and the understanding of the consumers is quite different, or at least there's a gap. And having a technology like NLP and AI, and it bridges that gap. That means the chief product officer himself or herself can actually understand how the customers are using the product, number one. Number two, many companies have a churn problem. You'll be surprised about how low the understanding of churn is. I worked in companies where churn was very high. And if you went into a meeting and discussed, okay, guys, do we know why churn is high? It usually was the person who spoke the loudest or the highest paid person decided why the churn was high. Mm. Now, actually, with this kind of technologies, you could understand why people are really upset with your company, or why there's something else in the offering, with a competitive offering, or something has changed in the market environment, and why customers are leaving. You can actually understand that, and you can understand that by customer, because I can tell you which customer is upset and why they're upset. And you can then actually say that customer. So number two, you can actually improve your retention. And number three, you have your marketing team who measure the health of your brand with the NPS, sentiment value, etc., which is great. It's a reasonably good proxy for the health of your brand. But most marketers will struggle to explain why the NPS is high or why the NPS is low. With this kind of technologies, AI technology, you can actually go out and understand what customers are talking about, what they're talking about, etc., and based on that, understand what the NPS, why the NPS is what it is, why the sentiment is what it is. And importantly, these are all short-term, immediate operational benefits. Another benefit is the long-term trend of customer habits. Now, the Unilevers and the Procter & Gamble used to pride themselves in knowing where customers are going, where the habits are changing, and being able to develop products for them. That is no longer the case. customers are moving, number one, at a faster rate, at different rates across the world. So someone in the West Coast of US would be having very different habits than someone on the East Coast of Asia. And so what that is offering opportunities for other brands, small brands, or even entrepreneurs to actually construct brands and build businesses at a faster rate, below the radar. And before they know, before Unilever knows, before L'Oreal knows, there's a £1 billion brand built called Glossier. And everyone sits around and thinks, what were we doing? Why didn't we know? We spot these trends. And it's because the person who built Glossier, she knew exactly what was happening because she used to run the blogs on Vogue magazine, and then she left and she basically started the business because she knew the change in habits. So a lot of the companies are under pressure or are falling behind in understanding the trends. And technologies like AI, etc., can help companies understand trends across multiple channels, across multiple geographies, can actually, how do I simplify the complexity that exists today?
Yeah, this is really, I find this a very useful in terms of just giving the tangible evidence, of what this really, how it can impact, because obviously a lot of people are aware of, AI being the hot thing that everybody's thinking about, but it really always comes down. I went through this with blockchain some time ago, where everyone went crazy for blockchain, but then, even as it's been evolving, there are certain use cases or certain applications that are landing, or that, even yesterday I was watching something where even a lot of proof of concepts haven't necessarily developed. But I think what you're articulating makes a lot of sense in terms of a new way of doing things, almost like, that idea of being able to predict things or see patterns, as opposed to just relying on, well, people did it that way last year, therefore we can work out, what they might do next.
Yeah, the metaphor I like to use is, when I was growing up, there was a small shop next to our house. The shopkeeper, he must have had like 20, 30 clients. He knew everyone. He knew what they liked. He knew what they didn't like. He knew when they liked it. He knew when someone had a trouble, didn't have money. He would, put a loan in place, etc. The shopkeeper knew everything. Now, this person, because he knew every single customer as the back of his palm, doesn't need an AI system. But the shops get bigger. Even with 100 customers, you can manage them. 1,000 gets a bit difficult. When it becomes 10,000, when it becomes 100,000, when it becomes a million, impossible to actually know your customer. So the question is, how do you make decisions about customers? You make them as if they were one massive blob, because that's what's happening. So you basically make decision at a product for one massive blob. You market it the same way for everyone, etc. But all of us are separate individuals. We have different habits, different needs, etc. And as the organizations, companies have become larger and larger, we have lost the capability to treat and understand every customer individually. More importantly, to make decisions for each customer. AI tries, and I wouldn't even assume that AI does it at the same level as my shopkeeper who knew the 30 customers. But AI tries to do that, tries to give back the ability of the capability for companies to be able to understand the customers more, and on a slightly more personal way at scale, and then make decisions for each of those customers.
Yeah.
So it's the AI, if I were to say, it offers, the power it offers is, number one, it gives you slightly more intelligence than a regular technology system does, which is slightly closer to human being than the technology systems that we had 10 years back. Still a long way to go before they even approach human beings. Number one. Number two is it allows it to be deployed in scale. So to 1 million or 10 million, etc. And number three, it does that at speed. And number four, it allows you to actually automate some of the basic decision making that today you put human beings. For example, again, sorry to interrupt me if I'm just going on for too long. If, for example, an email comes in to a company today, the person to decide whether it is a complaint or it's a request, you actually have a human being, because only human being can make out the difference between whether is this email a complaint that needs to be escalated, or is this email basically a request or ask for information. Today, AI has enough intelligence to be able to do that. So you can make that decision making. You can actually automate that decision making. And similarly, you can automate a lot of the small, mundane decisions that today you have put people in front to do that.
Yeah. No, I love your shopkeeper story. I think that I'm going to definitely steal that and use that as a really nice story, because I think I almost got like, shivers of the because we all, and I have a newsagent around the corner from me, and he's supporting my whole community. And so we all, people of a certain age anyway, we've grown up with those people, the high street is now dying and all this. We know what it's like to have somebody who understands us as a customer, and it becomes like a friendship of some form as a community, on a community level. But actually, I love the idea that technology can actually build those bridges in some way so that people can, this is really sort of in the sort of tech for good territory to a certain extent of if you can genuinely use these things for personalizing and, not treating people like a number or whatever. And actually, I think this is always the holy grail with all of these things. As digital has also evolved, digital made promises about what would happen, and sometimes that works and sometimes it didn't. And I'm sure AI is going to be the same. It's going to make someone feel warm and fuzzy, or it's going to make someone say, I haven't even, got pregnant and you're sending me a nappy advert.
It is, overall, AI is giving us huge benefit. And one of the things actually that winds me up is the national narrative, at least in UK, is that AI is a force for bad. And if you open up the newspapers, it's easy to get a headline about how AI has got this guy in trouble because they told the police that he's likely to commit crime. Or something else, we have stolen the data. These are all challenges that AI has and has to be dealt with. But overall, AI has been a force for good. And it has made tremendous change. It is making tremendous change in the NHS, in other parts of the health system. It is making changes. It is having an impact on our day-to-day life.
I think this is, one of the reasons why I brought this whole community of startup entrepreneurs like yourselves. You've been a pioneer for some time, and it's like we are building, the new earth, if you want to get that grand. And we have these tools in our hands, and it is for us to then go and do useful and positive things with those. And so I like to give you the platform to start talking about these things to a wider audience, so that we can all, with our eyes open, start to actually open up our minds to what we can do. And then hopefully, old broken down systems can just fall away because people have created something that's more fun and more useful as a result to go and use. So that's exciting. I know we could talk longer, and hopefully we'll do this again in the future. And I'm probably going to plan, actually, just to put it out there, some group discussions. And we've got other AI and data people that we might be able to get a whole mastermind together. But for today, thank you so much for this. And do you want to just mention, I know we haven't really, you've given a really good overview of AI and how it can apply to these consumer businesses, consumer-focused businesses in particular. But do you want to just mention very briefly a little bit of a shout out to your business and what exactly?
Yeah, well, we do. Okay. Before I do that, let me mention two things that I'm passionate about. in the AI in general. One is that AI is a force for good, and we need to tell the story why it is a force for good. Overall, I think the AI community has not done a great job of telling that story. As a result, it's usually the headlines are always about ethical problems, which are all valid problems and needs to be dealt with. But that's not the only thing. There's a good side to it. The second second point I'm passionate about is that London can be a capital, if not the capital, which it's unlikely to be the capital, but can be. London and UK can be a place, a magnet for innovation in AI and for AI businesses. And I think all of us have a role to play in that. I know that the government and the City of London is trying to support it, but there's more that can be done to grow AI businesses and the ecosystem around AI. Shout out to my company. We do basically three things. One is what I call front of the house. So we have this product where we can actually extract all conversations from customers of a brand. We put them, package them together. We separate the noise from the signals, and we make it available within hours or maybe a day to the business. That means the product manager knows exactly what's happening with the product across the world. So we do it in multiple languages. So the product, recently, one of our customers, there was a product release, which went fantastically well in their core market, so they were happy. But then we actually put our hand up and said, like, hey, in Germany, there's a problem, which they would never have realized, at least for 2-3 months. So we help the product managers, we help the sales and retention team, we help the marketing guys, and we help the customer support team, because customer support always wants to know what's happening and in terms of customer issues and reduce the issues. So that's our front of the house. The back of the house is more back-end kind of stuff. What we use is the same technology we use for automating document processes. So a lot of companies, and especially in a lot of sectors, they have to manage thousands and thousands of documents, and they are manually processed. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of cost. And sometimes they're error prone. We can actually automate that easily, extract the data, make it documented, automate the due diligence. So those are the two main products that we have. On top of that, we do a lot of bespoke prediction work. We have a fantastic work we're doing with one of the leading universities here in terms of predicting cancer. Specific cancer. And so, yeah, we do a lot of bespoke prediction work. So those are the three things.
Excellent. All right. And we're going to have we'll put your LinkedIn and your website on the description down below the video as well. So thanks again, Manas.
Thank you.
Rahul and Manas. Mr. Manas. Manas.ai. Okay. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Carl. Thank you for the opportunity.
Again. Take care.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.